This is Moonlighter Between Dimensions, the better version of Moonlighter. In the new DLC you will get some new features like enemies and bosses in interdimensional dungeon, a new shop and more. Since it's gonna be my first video of the year, I want to be talking about everything in Moonlighter Between Dimensions. And since there's quite a lot, it's gonna be quite a mess. Also because the game is still Christmas themed for a part. For 4 of the mini bosses you can enter a tiny dungeon from a secret portal. But instead of a shiny glimmer you can see a green goo. So Golden Dungeon has one, Forest Dungeon has one, Desert Dungeon has one, and Tech Dungeon has one. You can only enter the tiny interdimensional dungeons on the first floor and the second floor. The green goo glimmer will not appear on the third floor. The tiny dungeon only has 3 floors and then a mini boss. The special creatures you see here will drop nothing. But I don't think it's the right time to go in on the enemies, so let's go in on the mini bosses. The interdimensional mini-boss of the Golden Dungeon is a giant slime who tries to touch you in naughty places. Defeat him and he will split up. First in 2, then in 3 and then in 4. Since they are just slimes and don't do a lot of damage, you can just defeat them. Unless you still need to finish the main game. The interdimensional mini-boss of the Forest Dungeon is a dual-wielding skeleton, which only tries to whack and slash you. Whacking with its hammer whenever it is close, and slashing with an air strike of his sword. Pretty easy to defeat with a bow, and to dodge you can just run. This is my favorite mini-boss of them all. The interdimensional mini-boss of the Desert Dungeon, the Dimensional Wizard. This guy is pretty sturdy, so from here on out you need to mind a bit what you're doing. He has 2 attacks, his hovering tadpole attack and his I'm gonna slam you on the ground deep attack. With the balls he throws 2 balls that go around the map, and when hurting you they cause you to drop your stuff. And with the slam attack he does some magic to make some stones drop on you. The interdimensional mini boss of the Tech Dungeon is a corrupt dimensional watcher. Also tough but easier to dodge than the Dimensional Wizard. He also has 2 attacks. A jetpack break following into a slam that creates a shockwave, and he shoots 3 times with a shotgun, then his attack ends and he follows up with another attack. Once you have experienced it a few times, the jetpack attack is easily dodgeable and you can even damage during that attack. For the shotgun one you just hope you do enough damage in time. Before we head into the big dungeon and talk about all the enemies, we will head into the town and see a bit of the lore. To officially begin the DLC you must beat the main game. Here you get a message, which I haven't recorded, that you must go to sleep and deserve some good night rest. During the evening an earthquake will happen and the dungeon will appear. The town will now also change its looks. Even during the Christmas period you still see the change. Some of the shops will also change their inventory. The wooden hat will have a few new potions. Focus Force will have new armor and weapons for you. And the Volker also has some new loot for you. You can upgrade your own shop, making it ICT upgraded. And you will have a new shopkeep in town. You can purchase him when you spot an ICT captain next to the billboard. This rat is a trader where you can buy items you won't be able to get during your runs in the dungeon. With these items you can craft armor and weapons in Vulcan's Forge. Sometimes you also will need some extra items from the main game, but since you most likely will have a lot of money you can just go to La Retailer to buy some. Then we go on to the big dungeon. It is one huge dungeon, so you can think of it like the Pantheon of Hollow Knight. However, here you can buy a few shortcuts from the Slime Alchemist. It requires an increasing amount of gold and slime chunks, while also requiring 2 unique cursed items. If you have a checkpoint you can enter the 2nd, 4th, 6th or 8th floor from the goo portal. And there will also be a totem risen near the dungeon door. The big difference between the tiny dungeon and the big dungeon is the loot you get from the enemies you defeat. And also the health they have. Because the big dungeon is in the end game they have a lot of health. The other dungeons not so much. Because they have so much health, it's better to get a DLC weapon like the Ragnarok blade. These enemies you can meet in the dungeons. A bowling boy would like to throw a boomerang at you and steal your stuff, which you don't get back if you kill him. There's also a gas suit person who sprays some sort of poisonous gas at you. This guy can also be a familiar. Then you have a fine plant who likes to touch you in places where the sun doesn't shine. And he also likes to bring a souvenir back with him. Luckily, if you defeat him, you get your stuff back. There's also a blue flame which launches at you whenever you get close to it. At first I had no clue how to defeat him, but whenever he launches at you, you must dodge into the attack. This way you stop him in its tracks and you can damage him. Then you have a floating golem head using telekinesis. He throws 5 stones at you one for one, then he reloads. If you have a weapon that can insta-kill him, attack him during his reloading time. There's also a lovely tank that throws mines. These mines can damage you, but they can also damage other enemies. Especially useful to throw them a little bit further with a greatsword. Then we have another Thunder dude who likes to touch you so well that it gives off a shock. The moment his attack stops, he will stop being electric. This is when you attack him. And the most annoying enemy is a spike ball chain enemy. Walk towards him and he swings his spike chain. I don't see a way to not get damage with this enemy. After defeating a few, you can also turn this one into a familiar. From here on, it gets a little bit weird. At least for me, since there should be 5 more enemies, but I can only find 1. When you see him, it's the desert dungeon boss Naja, but interdimensional themed and way smaller. Now it's a normal enemy which just teleports around you and runs into you. I would just dodge him and let him leave for another attack, then charge up your big sword and attack him instead. Before I forget, once you have defeated a mini boss, there will be a slime chest. The slime chest contains a weapon or sometimes a ring. In the tiny dungeons, it's a weapon you can immediately use, and in big dungeon you get a blueprint that you have to show to the slime alchemist first. You have to pay attention to the slime alchemist room, cause sometimes there will be a structure in every corner. Only not there. No one likes there. The most beautiful amulet or unique amulet is the one that allows you to have 2 familiars at once. A mother golem familiar. I just love it. Then we finally have the big boss, the Wanderer. I wouldn't want to see another boss in a green goo dungeon. He can attack in a few ways. He has a slimy teleport. Here he teleports into the ground and comes up somewhere with a shockwave, whilst throwing out some slime stones. Standing in those stones can hurt you. He can also jump onto you. And he also has an attack where his hands go into the ground and he will try to fondle you with tentacles. Once you have defeated him, it's time for round 2. His name will change from the Wanderer into the Enraged Wanderer. I really like seeing the Wanderer, so seeing a second time of him is really good. The Enraged Wanderer has some different attacks, but I think he's actually easier than the Wanderer, especially since you don't have to try and dodge those tentacles. He can obviously perform a slam, he can cover the room with his slimes and doing a laser head thing, which is dodgeable if you pay well enough attention where the head will pop up. He also likes to teleport from the ground, resulting in a slam. Then he also can spit out 2 orbs, which just float around. Just run around with this one and don't try to hit him. He can also do an attack where he stretches out his arms. If he hits you with his real slam attack where he slams 3 times, loot will be dropped. If you're somehow still stuck in the main game and need some tips, click here. Thank you for watching, until next time.